to any kind of um, class projects in high school, college, what are ways in which you've organized your own selves? Um, just throw out some ways in which you've done it. You might journal, you might use tape recorders. I'm just curious to see what. So whiteboarding, great. Sticky notes, very good. Start small and simple, great. Yeah, sticky notes. I have sticky notes here. Here's lots of lists. I'm an impulsive list keeper. I use these index cards a lot. Notepad with me all the time. I'm the same way. A lot of engineers get really mad at me that I work with because I actually carry a paper notepad, and I still do. That's the old film noir detective in me. But I can't help it. I need to write things down. Notebooks, Notion. There you go. That's a really great organization tool. That's so new, but really effective. Writing helps cement information. I can't agree with you more, James. Okay, cool. So we all have this idea of ways which work for us. I think we're all organized in our own ways, and sometimes it's really chaotic. You ever been around somebody totally in college? I had a roommate who was the most incredibly sloppy person I've ever met in my life, and just no organization to anything except in his own mind. And if you asked him, where's that red paper clip, he could sift through a mountain of chaos and find it. But we all have our own ways of organizing information in our minds. And there's no right and wrong way, but it's great that we all recognize and appreciate that we have this thing in our heads that kind of requires some form of order to our thoughts, to our planning, to our execution of things. We don't get in a car without opening the door first, right? Doesn't make sense. We're conditioned early on to never attempt to do that, right? We watch our parents, we watch, film, TV. No one ever gets in a car through, the gas tank or the window, and that's the kind of approach that I'd like to condition in everybody at Lambda early, which is there are right and wrong ways to organize and develop projects. So really, what I'd like to talk about tonight are ways in which the best practices for putting organization into place. I know again I'm talking to an engineering crowd, so you're all saying, why do we have to talk about this again? Why are we talking about anything other than coding? And we're talking about it because of the importance of your work. And your work, yes, you're coders, but you're coding on a project, and that project has consequences, and that project has stakeholders, and those stakeholders need this product to execute their goals, to meet their objectives. If you're working for a public company like Microsoft or Intel, they got to make quarterly numbers. There are stockholders. There's this domino effect of treating what you do deadly seriously, because it is not you wrestling with an individual as an individual with a project. It is you, it's your teammates, then it's your managers, and then it's product owners, and then it's stakeholders, and then it's shareholders, and all of these things. It's just a domino effect. And I think, I've told you all about how when I started, it was kind of early in the early days of computer games, and there wasn't a lot of accountability. And as I went in a few years later, Christmas became everything, right? If you didn't have your game shrink wrapped in a box on a store shelf on the day after Thanksgiving, you were dead. So all of a sudden, everything got really, really serious. And so the early cowboy days, how do we organize ourselves? Well, we used to, like, anything, cocktail napkins, Post-it notes. There wasn't software in place to really handle any kind of project management, and products were sort of you felt your way to a game and you got it out there and saw what happened. Then all of a sudden, when the stakes got higher, okay, we need, some form of product management. And the very first tool that I ever used for this task was Microsoft Project. And that first time I used Microsoft Project was probably about 1990. And all of a sudden there was this thing called a Gantt chart. And the Gantt, you put everybody on the team into the software and all of the tasks, and it spit out who does what when, and it looked really impressive. But it worked only if everybody was doing what they needed to do all the time. There was no, anytime there was even the littlest deviation, it threw the whole thing off, and you basically had to start the whole thing again. And there wasn't this kind of flexibility. There wasn't this kind, it was all or nothing. Let's take a whole product, break it all down, take our best guess, assign people to this, that, and the other thing, and then hold our breath, cross our fingers. 6 weeks in, somebody has a death in the family. Somebody quits. We got to replace that person. And almost entirely, that whole thing gets thrown out the window, and you're winging it, in June, July, August, September. Because you're just doing what you got to do to get it done. You're crunching. You're working 80-hour weeks, and it was like the beginning of product management, but it had its definite flaws. And honestly, that whole Microsoft Project Gantt chart thing, it evolved and it developed and it got better. You were able to now pivot. You were able to to build in contingencies and padding and all of these things. So it got a lot better, but it was never 100% foolproof. And always at the end of everything, you were back to the crunch. Let's just live in the office for 2 months and get it done. So it's not, the industry was in need of disruption, and this is probably 2005, 6, and that's really the birth of agile product development. And agile product development is largely what we're going to talk about tonight, and that is iterative development. So you're not planning out an entire product from beginning to end at the beginning, and then hoping that it all holds together. You're working in sprints. You're sprint planning. You're saying, this is what we're doing for these next 1, 2, 6, 8 weeks, whatever it is. We have a to-do. We have a task. We have it in progress. We have it in review. We have it in testing. We have it completed. And we have a backlog. Okay. So, let's say we finish, our sprint is, we've got 10 tasks. We've done them all. Great. we're not going to just jump right into the next sprint. We're going to grab a couple of tasks off the backlog, move that forward. Next sprint officially begins. We break that sprint down. That was a great advancement in product development, or project management and product development. But it's weird because it went kind of back to the cocktail napkin where I started, in the late 1980s. Here's a task, it's written down on a card or a cocktail napkin or a Trello card, and we are doing it, and I have it up on taped, scotch taped on the wall, and I'm moving it here and I'm moving it there. So it made a lot of sense, and it really streamlined product development, and it did make it more iterative, and it did make it more flexible, and it did allow you to pivot on the fly, and it did allow you to reprioritize. And so that's kind of stuck, in the last decade. And that's where we are now. And there are a lot of people that still practice waterfall, which is that Microsoft project approach. And that works really well for a highly mature industry. If we are in a factory manufacturing widgets, and we have these machines that have been around 20 years, and they produce 100 widgets a day, you can use a Gantt chart and it's going to work. But software is a creative endeavor. It is largely creative. It's creative, and it's highly technical. There's just there's no way you can plan for all contingencies. And then what happens when you come up with a brilliant idea that makes everything better? Then what do you do? So the beauty of where we're at today and what we're learning here at Lambda is that we are able to work better as teams. We're able to work better as teammates. We are able to work more collaboratively with each other. And we're able to say, okay, we didn't think of that. Let's hurry up and work that into this, put this thing on the back burner, focus on getting this in because it's really great. Make sure, weigh out whether it's going to break or hurt or derail anything. As a group, you can decide that, and then move everything forward. And it's not all or nothing, or it's not going to blow up the project. So that's kind of where we're at. This is a Kanban board versus a waterfall board, and that's we've shared a Trello template with you, and that's a starting point. And there will be some flexibility in that. We'll talk a little bit about that tonight. And there is there's the important thing is to know that you're not expected tonight to think you have to break down your entire project and account for everything. You're not. The purpose of these last 3 weeks or 4 weeks was thinking about your product vision, breaking these canvases down. But you guys all, the top of your mind should be thinking about that first canvas. Okay, that's what you're going to tackle first. That's what we're going to really focus on breaking down and organizing into our Trello board before we kick the coding process off. I'm glad we're all thinking about product canvas 2 and 3 and 4, but there's going to be pivoting and flexibility and changes that occur. And we're not, each time we get to it, we close out a canvas, we move on to the next one. We're going to spend a little time up front breaking it down, creating a new Trello approach, new Trello board for that product cycle, that product canvas. We're going to put all of our mental focus in breaking it all down into minute detail, getting that on the Trello board, getting it up for tasks, and knowing how we all work together to grab a task, execute the task, deliver that task, get the next task. Working in tandem, not on top of each other, not stepping on each other's toes. So I'll take a break and just ask for any questions. Anything about what I've said. When does product management get in the way of itself, so to speak? Well, good question. So my first experience with Agile development was on a product in 2010. And again, this was all very new at that point. And, we have scrums, and there is a Scrum Master. And to be called a Scrum Master, you had to become Scrum certified. And this person who was the Scrum Master was the most unagile person I've ever met in my life. The whole purpose of Agile is to be agile. But this person was so inflexible about making changes or pivoting or saying, we're throwing that onto the backlog and we're moving this up because it makes sense. So where can it get in the way? Inflexibility. There are product managers who are really not equipped to be product managers in the sense that they're not flexible. The whole point of Agile should be agile, flexible, cool, calm, collected, and so I think that it's important to walk the talk and talk the walk, or whatever. It's, if you're agile, you're agile, and that means that it is exactly that. It is the ability to self-manage the team as a group toward the goal, and to make changes when they need to be made, and not have somebody wearing this Scrum hat say, you're not following the rules. So flexibility. To me, it is a creative process. It's not entirely a technical process. So creativity means, a light bulb goes off, you all think of something great. Okay, we want to get that in. What's the consequence? What do we weigh to get that in? How do we adapt? What do we balance to get it in and to get the final result? So it's really working with the product manager, and not working for the product manager. It's working with the product manager and vice versa. So, okay, my current job, we run into a lot of times regarding customer support issues. Bug fixes get delayed because I see what you're saying. It is not always, it can't always be customer driven. Development needs to be developed, product development needs to be done logically, and it needs to be done in some kind of order that makes sense. Otherwise, you're always just going to be trying to please the loudest voice. So that is a very hard thing to balance. But I can tell you this, like 3 years ago, I worked on a project. It was a mobile app. It should have been done in 90 days. It was pretty simple. It was being developed in Unity, and there was this problem. It had to access the camera on the phone, and there was something about the way Unity interfaced with the camera APIs on specifically iPhones, and could not solve this problem. No amount of code wrangling could solve it. Then began to work directly with Unity. Unity couldn't figure it out. Finally figured it out. Unity put it on the backlog. And it took Unity 11 months to fix it and deploy it because it had to come up in the backlog. And an app that took 3 months took 18 months. That's a tough, truth to the way software development goes. But again, Unity has to balance how they're deploying their resources to reach their goals, and where certain fixes in their code need to be made that maximize their resource allocation. So Gannon, good enough. Yes, exactly. Very good analogy. Okay, so no other questions. We'll move on. I think the important thing to know that, as we go into this, and I'll share my screen now. And we'll go up to a Trello board here. So I think this is the Trello templates that's been shared with you up to this point. And this is a template. This is where we'll start. An idea. Front end, back end. This is where any web-based product starts.
FJ, we're looking at the Slack.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Okay, can we see the board now?
Still Slack.
Still Slack. Hang on,
Slack's persistent. Likes a lot of attention.
Okay, hang on. Okay, now are we good?
We're good.
All right, great. So this is our the Trello board template that's been shared. I think the important thing to stress here, well, first we've got columns, and these are called lanes. And I think, most of you have been using Trello. I don't need to sort of explain, the way columns work. We move things from column to column. So we have, in the template here, we've got our ideas. These are the big, any web-based project. The core idea of it is a front end and a back end. Now within that, you've got a million things, right? But let's just start with the fundamentals, okay? And as you know, here we can add cards, and we can within a category we can create checklists. Oh, back end. There's only 300 things that comprise a back end. We begin to start to create that checklist. Checklists can turn into individual cards and then those are broken into checklists. It's a process of starting with something like front end, back end, and then breaking it down, and then breaking that down, and then breaking those down. And as you do that as a team, you will begin to develop a structure to your cards and your individual tasks, and how you group those tasks and how you break down those tasks. But I think the best thing to do is to say, okay, we're going to take this first canvas. We've all worked in user stories, right? We have personas, we have user stories. We've crafted our features around, as a user, I need to do this, or as a person, as a customer, I need to have this. That's fine. We'll start. Those can be our ideas, for the first sprint. And you can group them under front end or back end, and you can begin to then say, okay, as a user, and I Gannon shared an example, like, as a team member, I want to be able to easily sort my training messages so I can easily navigate through the training kit and identify any unopened materials. This is a task, right? This is an idea. And then within that idea, you can take any idea or any concept, and you can begin to
the example one you want to see is in the done column, because this is an older one.
Yeah.
You write down a little bit. Nope, not there.
Yeah.
Down a little. Oh, actually, scroll just a little bit more. Yeah, it's right beneath, right there.
Yes.
There you go.
So, as a team member, I would like a tutorial on how to navigate the features so that I know how to use the website. Okay, that's a great customer story, or that's a great user story. But to do that, we need to break that down. What does that mean? What does it mean? Exactly what does it mean to meet that objective? Well, we begin to put our checklist together, figure out which package going to use to run the tour, study the documentation for the package, choose in which item the tour should proceed, put the code in, style the tour. These are the individual tasks that begin to comprise that card, that objective, that idea. So there's a couple of ways to approach this, and that is, you can take a user story and you can break that down into these individual checklists of tasks, and those can be assigned to one person, or if it's being assigned to other people, if you're going to break up a user story, which is part of the feature set, and you think that multiple people are going to work on that, then you might want to break that up into 2 cards and have a checklist for each, and one person does part of it, another person does the other part of it. There isn't a textbook way to do this. The important thing is that you all begin to think about breaking down tasks into subtasks in logical and sensible and organized ways. And as you do that, there will become an order to this. And as a team, you will get better about, well, yeah, that's a, that's a user story that's comprised of um, three major tasks, and each of those major tasks have three subtasks. Uh, what I hate to see is teams who don't dig deeply enough into their tasks. They'll say, deploy front end, and and that will be assigned to one person. And no, they don't delve into it. They don't break it down. They don't think it through. They don't say, here's the logical progression: this, then this, then this, then this. And in doing that, they don't meet, they never succeed. It's really like the teams that have these Trello cards that are very deep, checklists after checklist, and comments, each of, people chiming in, looking at it, saying that doesn't make sense. Did you think of this? Team communication within cards, within checklists, is what's going to keep this thing moving, like a steam engine going forward. So, everything we do is work, right? Every little task is work. If it's, okay, in order to, in order to even write 5 bullets at the top of my brain, that means I've got to grab this, this notebook, these note cards, and I've got to start with that. Without that, I can't get it from the brain to the, to the paper. Well, that's work. That's a task. Call it out. There's no, there's nothing too simple to not account for, either as part of this process or in your mind. And it's really, it'll pay dividends. I promise you, it will just pay dividends. I'll talk about, I was involved. I had my own game development company in my 20s, really early in the days of computer games. That's the time I told you about, when I had the Marvel Comics license. I'm 23 years old. I don't know how to run a business. I'm in over my head. And it was really precarious, trying to develop a product, manage a team, figure out how to allocate money that was very scarce. And at one point, I didn't think we were going to make it. We were, the company was probably 20 people. And I was in London at this trade show. And I just remember going to this hotel lobby thinking, there's no way we're going to pull this stuff off. And I felt overwhelmed, like I was drowning. And I went to the gift shop in this hotel, and I got a spiral notebook, and I just started to write down anything that came to my head. Like, okay, I got to do this. Then I got to do this and this and this, but I can't do that without that. And over the course of 6 hours in a hotel lobby, I went through, 30 pages of this spiral notebook, and I would tear pages and crumble them up because it made more sense to group this with this. But the way my mind works, I can't just see it. I've got to tear it off, rip it up, and put it all on one page so that the progression is being logical. And I swear to God that saved saved that early days of that business, was that 6 hours of just emptying my brain, thinking about everything I could think of, and then trying to organize it into a logical sequence. I probably still have that notebook somewhere in my archive, because I remember keeping it. And yeah, it was, I wouldn't be here today without going through that. And that was just this, there was no book that taught me how to do that. That was my brain crying out for logic and order in chaos. And that's what I would really hope that you all do, is that as a team, you say, before we code, we're going to spend 8 hours here talking about how to break this down, what makes the most sense, and organize it in these cards. These templates that were shared with you, they're a starting point. You can tweak those. We can look back and, in progress, ready for development, ideas. You have flexibility within these. We'd like to keep this as a general template because it makes sense. This works. These are good lanes to work from. But a lot of times I've seen backlog. That's another area that you can say, well, it's not part of it's not part of this product canvas, but these are things we definitely know we have to do, and that can all be part of the ideas. You can say front end, back end, break that down the best you can think of it today, knowing that you haven't thought it all the way through, and that's your backlog essentially. But there's it's really how you think as a collective team. First, you got to think individually. Then you got to bring that all to the table. Then you've got to have groupthink. And groupthink is the way you as a team break things down and organize them. And so these columns might might change a bit from team to team. I don't know. This isn't rigid. So if you're talking to your team leads and you're saying this is our idea for this change, then raise it. To just look at the template, you might have a question of what is ready for review, what is ready for QA, what is ready for stakeholder, and what is deployed. I think that ready for development is what you are doing in that product canvas, in that sprint, in that cycle. These are your major tasks, and within each of those, you're breaking everything down into checklists. Then in progress, one of the team members has grabbed one of these tasks or multiple tab, whatever it is, and we know who's doing it. It's been, it's been assigned. We know who's doing it, when they started, where they're at. There are ample opportunities here to document, to take notes, to ask questions. Can't do enough of that. Ready for review. That means that you're coding, it's on your local machine, you haven't deployed anything yet, you are ready for someone on the team to look at it, to chime in, to have a sanity check, whatever it is. Ready for QA is it's now been deployed. Again, this is all within the team. There's no QA Oompa Loompas out there gonna, do this for us. We got to do it as a team. But it's deployed. It's ready for the team as a whole to look at. Once it's up there and been deployed, ready for stakeholder. As Lab stands right now, I'm your primary stakeholder. I think your team leads are your first path to that column, and then I can look at it and tell you, yeah, that that's been met. So when you move it over, I'll be able, you quickly present it to me and show me how it's been done and completed, and then it moves over to deployed, which is completed, and we go back and we grab the next task, and we begin the cycle again. We get to the end of the sprint, the end of the product cycle. We've emptied out, ready for development. Our deployed is nice and fat and yippee, and we move on to the next product cycle, and we break that down again, and we begin it again. But every team is different. Every team has a different chemistry. Every team has different levels of detail. There are some OCD, driven teams, and there are some, cash teams, that are that aren't going to dig as deeply into checklists or tasks. It's it's okay. The important thing is you use this tool, because this tool is part of the whole development of your project and your movement through labs and out of labs. The project is evaluated, the code's evaluated, the Trello board is part of that. They're going to look to see how you how you think, how you organize, and how you execute it. So you might ask, why are we using Trello? I mean, there are a million tools out there, right? I used to use Axosoft, and then several companies I've used Jira. Jira requires a real product manager to sort of assign these tasks. So you get assigned a card or a task, and you are accountable, and the product manager rides you to get it done. That's a serious tool for companies. The nice thing about Jira is A, it's free, and B, hiring managers can look at this. You can send them a link, and they can look at a Trello board, and they're not required to have a login or anything like that. It's a simple, clean link. And it's a great starting place. You're all gonna, if you have careers, you're gonna be faced with Jira. You're gonna be faced with these big, serious product management tools. You won't be a product manager, most likely. You'll be on the engineering teams. But you are, by doing this and using Trello and understanding the fundamentals, you're going to be able to talk to that product manager in a way where they have, even more respect for you than if you were just the coder who rolls their eyes at the mention of schedules and tasks. You're all getting this great education about how to be coders, but you're getting this base level education by doing this process to be product managers. So the combination of these skills makes you really deadly. I mean, you're going to have an understanding of what all this means, and you're not going to be as intimidated by this, product manager out there. You're going to understand what they do. You're going to understand the fundamentals of that role. You're going to have respect for it because you all have done it, and you'll be able to communicate with them in a way that that is just going to allow you to, be much more collaborative and pleasant to work with, because you'll get it. So a lot of you are, wondering, why do we have to do this? That's why. It's making you a much more well-rounded developer. if you understand why this has to happen and why this is part of the process, why this is so critically important to somebody who this is their full-time job. They're not your enemy. You know, how many times have product managers, project managers, and creative teams and or engineering teams had just been at war with each other because they don't speak the same language. They don't respect, you know, what each of their roles are. You're getting exposure to this really critical facet to product development, and you're getting this understanding of why it's so important. And I can't stress enough that it's deadlines met. It is that you know, that keep companies healthy, afloat, and you know, cash steady. It's so critical when you're a public company to meet your quarterly numbers, and the only way you do that, I mean, I'm talking a software technology company, is to deliver according to schedule. So all of this is designed to help you meet that objective. So I probably talked too long and rambled too much, but ask some questions. We're not expecting you to figure out how to do this perfectly. We're going to work with you. You're going to take your best attempt to start to do this next week, and taking that first canvas on your 5th day, starting to break it down as a team. And you know, we'll have check-ins next week. We'll look at it. We'll help you structure. We'll help you organize. We'll help you break it down further. Or if you're OCD and you broke it down too far, then we'll help you bring it back up. But we're just getting it started. So that's the message tonight. Any questions? We were an inch away from yelling at each other because we were tired. Yeah, this is a great point. I was exposed, you know, it's amazing. I continue to learn new things. This week, you know, I'm working with, right now I'm working with educational curriculum people. I'm working with scientists. And I was exposed to this new term called team science. And this is really kind of new. And what you're talking about is, you know, cross-functional teams are struggling with exactly what you're talking about, which is how can we work together with different skill sets toward the same goal. If I'm not a scientist, I'm a curriculum writer, and I'm a software engineer, and we all have to work together to produce this thing. And I'm only just learning about this topic, but I would say that one important thing to do is get your nomenclature down as a team. What do you call things, and what does that mean? You know, we've said product canvas, we've said feature canvas, we've said product vision document, we've said TDD, we've, you know, technical design document. We all kind of know that what, you know, when I slip up and say feature canvas, that means product canvas. You know, that's all part of labs evolving, but spend time up front making sure you understand what each term in that Trello board means. You know, what everything in those cards actually mean, define it, create a, you know, a definitions list if you have to, but agree upon what each thing means. And you won't do that up front. You're going to butt heads with people on your team who thought, well, I thought you meant this, and I thought you meant this. Great. Learning opportunity. Stop, reset, define it. Okay, we understand. Yes, yes. We won't make that mistake again. Everybody on the team now knows that definition. It takes some mistakes and pain points to actually, you know, to do that effectively, and it never stops. But as part of your sprint planning or part of your product canvas planning and your Trello board for each of those, talk through those cards and make sure everybody knows what a certain term means, because like you said, there's ambiguity in terms, right? One thing means one thing to somebody, and another, you know, another to another, you know. So talk about that up front. That's a great question, by the way. I'm really excited someone asked that. Okay, anything else anyone wants to talk about? Any other questions? Okay, well, that went on a little longer than I'd hoped, but I hope it was useful and beneficial to just kind of talk about product management. You know, talk about the history of it, and get your thoughts moving toward that idea of breaking things down. So I'll let you go. Any other questions, just ping me, get together with your TLs, and then have a great night of project time. Okay. Thanks, everybody. Good to see you all. Bye.